My problem wasn't the cancer, it was the aloneness. And if I long for anything in my life, it's connection. I'm trained as a psychologist, and I've done 2 master's degrees and a doctorate. And in all of my training, telling your own story is like a big no-no. The whole purpose of this is hopefully to help other people feel less alone in these complicated moments in our lives, where we all let go of all of that fear and bullshit and just exist together as our most authentic, flawed, gorgeous, fucked up selves. When we can be ourselves, we have the best and most perfect chance at connection. I'm Sarah Schmidt, and this is Wholey Schmidt, Season 1. Hi, welcome back to Wholey Schmidt. Here we go again. Today, we're going to dive back into parenting, but not just any old parenting episode. I'm going to talk about my journey to becoming a mother in all its forms, but we're going to focus more specifically on the experience of birthing my first biological child at age 44. Fertility is an issue that so many women struggle with at any age. Having this little guy at 44 was no small feat. I learned so much in the process and after in parenting him, as I have with all of my kids. And here's the bottom line. I've always known this, but my kids have taught it to me, and they teach me every day. Love is what makes a family. And your love can be boundless, timeless, and ripple beyond those you care for, beyond your own children, beyond those you birthed, beyond those you adopted, into the world. I invite you to think about that. How who you parent and who you mother is so much broader and bigger than the children that actually live in your home. And I just want to add that I think it's really important that we hold a lot of compassion and grace for those who have gone through fertility treatments, the struggle to conceive a child. And I invite you to listen today with an open heart and open mind. How can we all learn together? I thought that after we had adopted that our family was complete, and I was done with taking care of babies. Once she had gotten older, we were done with babies, and our family felt very complete. Life changed so dramatically, and I think just the experience of falling in love makes you consider possibilities and open doors that you might otherwise have closed. There's just something about that phase and that time when everything feels new and fresh, and there's just like a beautiful bright spotlight shining on your life, and you see nothing but beautiful possibilities. We decided we were going to get married, and we were talking about everything, and very quickly we're like, should we have a baby? We both had this very resounding yes. We decided to not try. And I actually quickly became pregnant. I was, I think, 42 at the time, and I had a miscarriage. And it was the experience of the miscarriage which helped solidify for me the knowing that I wanted to have a baby. I thought, I'm 42 years old, I'm past the age where this is just going to happen easily. So the fact that we quickly got pregnant was a big surprise to me. And then the miscarriage, it was hard, but surprisingly, I was able to really work through that. And I just was focused on just the knowing that I really did want to try to have a baby. It wasn't easy for me to compare my experience and my mom's experience because the circumstances were so dramatically different between our experiences of having a miscarriage. Even before we got married, we even started thinking about, okay, if we really want to do this, how are we going to do it and what really makes sense? The assumption that we made was that the miscarriage was probably just as a result of, like, as you get older, the number of really healthy, viable eggs that a woman has is just diminishing, and it probably was just that. Given the challenges that we were already facing in our family and the different needs of all of our kids, it seemed like not a bad idea to do IVF and do genetic testing on the embryos. I realize that's a bit of an extreme leap for some people, but I knew clearly what I could handle and what we could probably handle. Sometime around the time I was turning 43, I think, we started doing IVF. We did 2 rounds of egg retrievals, and we did 2 transfers of embryos, and I had 2 more miscarriages, one of which was pretty devastating, the second one. For anybody who's gone through fertility treatments, they are a grind. You feel like shit. Your life revolves around them. You just are not yourself. The hope is so deep. You have to have such a level of commitment to the process. And when it works and then you find out it didn't work, it's really hard. And that second miscarriage was really, really hard. And I was feeling like I can't do this again. I wanted my body back too. I just was not feeling like I was in my skin, or the skin I was in just didn't feel good to me. And after having spent a bit of time feeling really good in my skin and really liking my body, it was really hard. That was a really hard part of this. But we had 2 embryos left, and I didn't know what to do. I was feeling very conflicted about all the options that were presented to me. We had our wedding. We had a little honeymoon, and we decided we'll come back and try one last time, and that'll be it. I decided that last time I would do everything I possibly could so that there was nothing left on the table. I'd given it my best shot, and I would have known I did it all. I went to acupuncture. I got my chiropractor involved, cleaned up my diet. Sounds hilarious because there actually wasn't that much to clean up, but I was really strict. I started doing some Chinese herbs, everything I could do to prepare for this transfer. And I really didn't think it was going to work, and I was prepared for it not to. And I went into it thinking I gave it my all. This will be it, and then I'll move on with my life. And in February of 2016, we went to New York for a weekend just to kind of kill the time between the time of the transfer and the time that you test to see if you're pregnant. And on day 4, past the transfer, I decided to do a pregnancy test. I couldn't sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night. I walked to a Walgreens in New York City. I bought a bunch of pregnancy tests. I took one, and at 4 o'clock in the morning, I saw a faint line. And I thought, holy Schmidt. And you don't want to get too excited because it was a very faint line. But then the next day that line was a little darker, and the next day that line was a little darker, and the next day that line was a little darker. And sure enough, on day 10, my numbers were off the charts, and there was conversation about, is she having twins? And I was like, oh my God, I hope not, but maybe that'd be cool. We heard a heartbeat. There was only one heartbeat, and I was pregnant. And it stuck. It was really great and really amazing and really horrible all at the same time. I loved that I was creating a human. Loved it. And the idea of it and the fact that I could do it. And I definitely I was definitely aware of I was relating to myself so differently. I was caring for myself because it was caring for him. And I was aware of this body, which previously had betrayed me so profoundly, was now completely coming through for me and for him. And that was really, really, really cool. And at the same time, the transformation that I experienced in being pregnant, I did not enjoy. I liked feeling lean. I liked feeling strong. I liked being active. It changed what I could do, changed how I felt, how I could move. And that was hard. But I knew it was temporary. I knew it was going to last forever. So I tried to enjoy the ride. I loved the experience of giving birth to him. It was harrowing. But there was a period of time that I knew that I was created for nothing more and nothing less than to birth this baby. And I felt such a sense of power and focus and mission and determination. I was just excellent at it. And I like being good at things. So, even my OBGYN was kind of stunned at how quickly and how well I did. And that was great. Having him in my arms was extraordinary. But I had other experiences of holding babies in my arms that gave this experience context that I think other people might not have. The day that Callie's birth mom gave her to us, put her in our arms, the day that we met Will and buckled him into his car seat and took him home, knowing his birth mom chose us. Those days were as present for me in that morning as like anything else. So I had this like deep sense of loss that just came over me while I was just amazed at what had just happened for us. So it's almost like the experience of giving birth only made sense to me in the context of adoption. I couldn't help think about what led these two amazing women to choose adoption and all the circumstances in their lives that just took them down that path of knowing they could not parent their child. I've said this a million times to people, but on any given day when I feel like I really suck at something and I'm feeling kind of down on myself, I often will be like, two people chose me to parent their children and gave me their children. I must not be that bad. It is an extraordinary thing to parent someone's child. I can't think of anything like bigger to be asked to do. I was very aware of them having the experience of birthing a child and knowing they were going to place it for adoption. At the same time, I was giving birth to a child and choosing and being able to choose to parent. I think it is in the contrasts that some of the most beautiful moments can emerge in our lives, when we can appreciate the contrast. I have to say, on a lighter note, I think adoption is way better than giving birth to a child. I remember the day we brought Will home from the hospital. I opened a bottle of wine and we sat down and we were like, what the fuck do we do now? 36 hours earlier, I was doing my thing and then I had a baby and my pants still fit. The experience of adoption, there's nothing that will ever supersede that in my life, ever. And I got to say, I'm sorry that that's going to always be the case. He loves to talk about how he's the only child in our family who lived in my body. And as a little person, he likes to talk about that a lot as a way to kind of, he's the youngest of 5. It's a tough road for him, okay? He needs to have ways to express his level of import. And this is how he chooses to do it. I'm fortunately a person, I think, who has a high level of optimism about what is possible. I like to do hard things to the point where sometimes if they aren't hard, I might choose not to do them because it won't be as fun. So I really adopted the how do you know it can't work until you know it can't work kind of attitude about this. And I did all the stuff you needed to do to kind of figure it out and did the blood tests and all the levels seemed okay. And it looked like it was going to be a go and there was no reason to think it couldn't. And I was given good advice, I thought, by physicians I consulted. And I thought it was a good bet to take. I was also prepared for it not to work. And it wasn't like this was my only shot at motherhood. It was going to be like icing on a beautiful cake. I was going to be really happy if it worked, and I was going to be really okay if it didn't. And I really believed that 100%. This wasn't going to be like, oh my God, if I can't have a biological child, what am I? I don't really remember the reaction my family had to my telling them what we were going to try for a baby. I think I did tell my mom about the miscarriage, the first one. I know my sister was really happy for me in the decision we were making and was very encouraging. At the same time, she was kind of like, are you sure you want to, the age range was pretty significant in our family. Now we had like 8 to 24. And so starting over when your youngest is 8, I would definitely caution people to give that some serious consideration. You have gotten rid of all the strollers. There's no more diapers in your house. Obviously, the cribs are out the door. The baby toys are gone. You don't have to worry about small things on the carpet. There's a big moment in a parent's life when that shit you're done with it, right? And we were done. And I was choosing to start all over again. That probably was the thing I got the most advice on, was starting all over again at this point in our lives. I also did the math. I was going to be like, if I got lucky, I was going to be like 60, 62 when he graduated from high school. And that felt a little daunting. I've never been one to really think about like retirement and I'm going to move to Arizona and golf every day. That wasn't really in my imagination of how my life was going to unfold. So the idea of parenting into my 60s, it didn't seem like a bad idea. Physically, I rebounded pretty decently from being pregnant. I nursed him for 17 months, which was not easy given the upper mantle radiation that I'd experienced. my body's ability to produce a really solid milk supply was definitely affected. So nursing was a concerted, focused effort that I really committed to. There were things that happened in that first year of his life that made it a hard year that had nothing to do with having a baby, and having a baby made those things harder. My dad got sick and died. Stress on top of a newborn, and then all the other children, was a lot to manage in a body that was still trying to recover. And no question, bounced back, I think, slower, took longer than it might have had I been 30. But I don't know. I wasn't pregnant at 30, so I'm not sure. I never stopped working out. I never stopped lifting weights. I never stopped, doing all the things I really loved. I had to make some adjustments during that time, and I think all of those things helped me a lot, too. Julie and I tried to have a baby. We did IVF to try to have a baby when I was in my late 20s, and it didn't work. Had I not had the experience of adoption and the challenges and the opportunities and the just amazing learnings that came from that, I wouldn't have been as good at being a mom again at 44. I mean, it's cumulative, right? I mean, and I don't know that it was because they were adopted. Certainly the challenges shaped me as a mother, changed me, and I think made me a better mother. Fergus is probably getting the best of me in terms of my ability to parent. I've been able to work at this for like 27 years. If you do something for that long and you haven't learned anything and you don't get better at it, then what the fuck is your problem? I'm a better mom now than I was 27 years ago. Every child that I have been gifted with and blessed with to have in my care has only added to the vast knowledge that I have been able to, assemble. For me, mothering is, and being a mother, it's an energy. It's the way I care for people. I think it's the way I've been made. I think it's the way I'm built. I was made for this. I am uniquely equipped to handle it and manage it and do well at it. I think there's just something kind of innate in me that was primed to just care for people in like lots of different ways. And had I not had children, I would have found some other way to parent, to mother, to like engender life in the universe. And it would have been, who knows what, through creative, expressions or work or starting this or building that. But even in those parts of my life, I still feel like I am mothering. I'm like giving birth to something. I'm bringing something into life, ushering it, cajoling it, shepherding it. I'm all those synonyms. The hardest thing about choosing to have this baby at that age, and given the complexity of our family, was the complexity of our family. I felt like it was a selfish. None of them needed a sibling, but they were all doing fine. My parents didn't need another grandchild. I'm not sure the world needs more humans. I don't know. I don't know for sure. But there's debate on that, right? This was me identifying this sense of like, I want to carry a child. I want to birth a child. I want to do this with Todd. We just want to do this. That was hard because it felt selfish at times. When my energy was running low or my feet were super swollen, or after he was born, when I had a hard time balancing sometimes their needs and the needs of an infant. There was a year that he screamed. I mean, honestly, the kid screamed every waking moment of the day for one solid year. And the other ones used to walk around with their hands over their ears saying, make it stop, make it stop. I felt like, oh God, I just wanted this. There weren't a lot of times in my life where I felt like I could just go after something I wanted. There was always a sense of, is this good for the collective we? And the collective we was so massive that to consider that, was just really hard and weighty. And I didn't do that with this decision. I felt a lot of guilt, and sometimes I still do, because for many years after he was born, it changed the way we traveled. It changed some of the things we did. It changed the rhythms of our family. It limited me, Other kids had to make concessions. It's just what happens when you have a sibling. There will be a day, and I see glimpses of it, when, I don't know, they're all going to be together in New York City in a restaurant having dinner together, just talking smack with each other, and I'll be nowhere near that restaurant, and their connection as humans will be as strong as any set of biological siblings that were all born within 3.7 years. I do know that'll happen for them. I think parenting in general is an exercise in letting go. The more you try to control and manage, facilitate, structure, set up, the more you do that, the harder you're making your life. So I do try to create opportunities, and they can choose to take them or not. We spend time on the lake together, and we do it all together. Sometimes we have to kind of alter the activity, but he's getting older and that's getting easier, and he's a really big kid for his age. In all those moments, I see them connecting, and I see the gift that they're giving each other, the perspective that he offers, that they offer to him. They've changed each other, and I think it's a good change. I think they've impacted each other in positive ways. I don't tend to worry too much about that. I just kind of believe that if there's a connection there that's supposed to happen, it'll happen. The less I try to make and manage, the better things tend to go. It's kind of disappointing at times, because really, when you step out of the way, it often is so much better than if you were like in there, trying to mess with and manipulate it all. It's a tough lesson, I think, for parents to learn, because you want to feel really effective. And in a lot of parts of our lives, it's hard to feel that way. So parenting is supposed to be that one place where you feel really, really good about yourself. But honestly, the less you get yourself involved, sometimes the better parent you'll be. I think you have to take care of yourself to be a good parent. You got to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on your kids. And if you're not modeling for them true self-care, I'm not talking about manicures and facials. I'm talking about like that deep work of that inner knowing and getting your shit kind of worked out and straightened out, so you're not just vomiting it onto them every day. Working around the generational big T, little t trauma that exists in your experience, that's the stuff. When you work on that, when you work on yourself, when you take care of yourself, you're showing them like the most important things in life. So that's been a big learning for me, and also not something that was modeled for me. I know that when I take care of myself, I'm a much better parent. It can be as simple as if I get a workout in, I am a more peaceful human that day. It can be just simple little things. And then sometimes it's really big things too, right? Getting away, taking a break. And I'm really fortunate that I can do those things occasionally. And I recognize that not everybody can do them in some of the dramatic ways that I do. So I was not very good at managing my own anxiety around their big feelings. Their big emotions scared me, threatened me, made me feel more anxious, got me all worked up. And it's only recently that I figured that out. And here's like, wow, big zinger. This is like the brilliant thought of the day, right? I wasn't able to handle my own big feelings. So therefore, theirs were very threatening. My own big feelings scared the shit out of me and felt life-threatening. And so I did everything I possibly could to avoid them. Therefore, when I saw them in my children, I was equally freaked out and threatened, right? And so I tried to shut them down in them too. But the minute I started just sitting with my own and came to this really fantastic conclusion that my sadness, my anger, my frustration, my whatever, irritability, it wasn't going to kill me if I just sat with it, then all of a sudden, their big stuff wasn't threatening either. And it just kind of goes back to that other point. I mean, if you're not paying attention to what's going on for you, you can't help and support your kids with their big stuff. It's really hard. This is the hardest thing about parenting. It's that the most important work you're going to do is on yourself. Really, it doesn't have a damn thing to do with like where they go to school and what extracurricular activities they're in and who their best friends are and where you're living. And it's all completely irrelevant if you as a parent attune to you and able to regulate. I think we get caught up in all those other things as a way to avoid that hard work. I'm so busy driving them around to everything to make sure they have all of these advantages. I couldn't possibly take time. Well, I also don't want to take time for it because it's really scary, right? So I'm going to drive them around incessantly so I don't have to. And then I'll just be exhausted. And then I can just talk about how exhausted I am. We're in a bit of a, it's a bit of a conundrum, right? But I do think that's the key. I think the choice to pursue fertility treatments is a really complicated and personal one. I struggle with what, advice I would give someone. If you're going to push me up against a wall and tell me I have to answer the question, I would say it's really critical that you are in the best emotionally healthy place that you can be while you're physically taking care of yourself. Because it's easy to get caught up into this, let's just try one more time, try one more thing, go one step further. And if you're not connected to you yourself, how you're feeling emotionally and physically, the toll it can take is really dramatic on you and your partner, and therefore your relationship. I've seen and witnessed IVF and fertility treatments destroying marriages. And it's not the IVF itself, but the process. I also think the desperation that some women feel to be mothers is something worth a conversation. I'm not maybe the one to talk about it because I have 5 children and I have had a lot of mothering experience in my life, but I also recognize that some of the most fulfilling mothering moments I have had in the world were not with my own children. It's been with other people in ways that I've been able to care and share and create. We don't give enough credit to those moments and experiences, and we don't validate them enough for women. And we've created and transmitted this message that you're only good and fulfilled and full and whole if you are a mother, have a child. And otherwise, why are you here? What is your purpose? I just feel sad about that. I think it's really unfortunate because when I think of all the gifts that we're given as human beings, there's so many ways to express that desire to create and care in all those different parts of motherhood. And I wish our world validated those as much and honored those as much as we do encourage women to actually have children, or how we judge women who choose not to have children. And it probably would take a lot of pressure off everybody if we shifted this narrative just a tiny bit, because maybe everyone would get a little bit of breathing room, right? Maybe we'd all have a little more space to think about ways in which we could mother each other in our journey to become parents or bring that energy into the world. I hope you really enjoyed today's episode. I hope it got you thinking and got you feeling, more importantly. Where do you feel all that love in your body when you think about the way you feel about your children? I invite you to join the conversation that we're having here. You can visit our website, wholeyschmidt.com, WHOLEYSCHMIDT. Share your Wholey Schmidt moments with us. And who knows, maybe we'll end up having a chat on this podcast together about it. Visit us on Instagram, drop a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, please join the community. Let's start a conversation about your own experiences of parenting and loving and learning. Follow us on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you so much.